Hey, wrestling fans, we're back at it for another week. AE Zone, All Elite Zone here on YouTube every Tuesday night. And myself, Matty G. And again, it looks like just the two of us again, Adam, my counterpart, Adam, the bearded.
It says
Oh,
the
how is
beard,
it?
bearded Hausen.
Very cool.
I'm still waiting to see what they do with Danhausen. He's still my boy, so I'm trying to see. He's doing a lot of independent stuff, so we will see.
Yeah, I was actually I saw a picture of him and I was actually just wondering like where did he go? But it's great we got there's no shortage of conversation, especially if it's just two of us. We could fill dead air no problem when it comes to talking about wrestling, that's for sure. And so it's great to join you again, Adam, on the Tuesday night and episode 39 here. So we're creeping up. It's amazing that we're at 39 and we're almost going to hit 40 next week. So that's pretty crazy. So it's been good to be here. And again, another big week, I guess a couple of weeks. We took a week off from the show. So a lot of stuff, a lot of movement going on in the world of professional wrestling for sure. Mm-hmm. And yeah, Adam, I had just kind of thought of a few topics have kind of come up recently, and I think they may be worth addressing or having a conversation or getting some of your feedback on some of these. And so I just wanted to maybe bring up as a first kind of a first idea or comments and get your feedback on is a Jericho, which I guess I know we're big Jericho fans. I was actually listening to his Talk Is Jericho podcast today. So again, we love the guy. We grew up on him. We love everything he does. So we just wanted to maybe chat about and get your opinion. How do you feel about the way he's probably on the sixth character, at least, with since being in AEW or even since he left WWE, would say, and then he had his New Japan when he went over, he had created a character there. So kind of get your opinion. What do you think about? Do you like the multiple characters? Is he pulling it off? That he's able to kind of just kind of where he feels like he kind of changes it and it's okay. Do you think it's beneficial? Do you think it's entertaining? So really, yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there and see what you think. Hey, Jesse.
Yeah, no, yeah, and also David, Jesse, thank you guys for joining us. Appreciate it, everybody listening. Yeah, what Jericho's doing now, it's interesting. I did grow up with him during the early ECW days, and basically his earlier days in New Japan. Well, not New Japan, but like the Lucha Libre kind of wrestlers down in Mexico. Then ECW, then WCW, then WWE, now AEW. Mm-hmm. So I kind of follow the guy's whole career. So I love the fact that he can take something and run with it as a character. We saw it as when he debuted in WWE as Y2J, and then he became, corporate Y2J, and then he became Save Us Y2J. Then he comes to AEW, he's Painmaker, he's Le Champion, he is now Learning Tree. So I love the fact that he can do it, but it's at the point where I think the crowd is starting to kind of fall back on it, where they're like, I understand he's trying something different. He's leaning into this new character. And the fact that he missed the wrong town on that promo after his match was funny. I was like, that's intentional because he's leaning into it because he's on that line of heel face because he's trying to be cool, but he's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the wrong. I meant this town, So I think what he's doing is smart, but it's also the point when you watch his matches, he's starting to slow down a little bit, and he's wanting to be in these matches where his opponent is much more quick in the ring and has a more high-flying kind of quick style in the ring. So I love that he can evolve characters, but his in-ring ethics kind of have dwindled, and maybe that just comes with age. So, but I guess we'll have to see where this goes basically with his character, and now he's got Big Bill under his wing. Leaning tree, but yeah, no, and then Hook is coming back, so obviously they're probably going to continue that feud between Hook and Jericho with Big Bill involved, and obviously we'll see where Taz comes into this. But as far as all the Jericho stuff, I really do feel like he's starting to become I don't want to be mean, but more of a mediocre shell of what he used to be. And I don't know if it's like maybe he's pushing too much. Like he's got a lot going on. I'm
Mhm.
not saying he's a bad guy. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
I listen to his podcast sometimes. I listen to Fozzy. I like their music. So I like him as a person. But when it comes to the wrestling stuff, I think it's almost time where he's like, okay, maybe this is my chance of maybe leaning into management role more. Maybe that's what we're seeing with him and Big Bill. So right now, I just got to see where the process goes with that.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of your points as usual. Yeah, I mean, I love Jericho. I don't see him. I think he's will transition well. Um, into the manager role. I think he's still got a great presence. He's got a great talent mind. He's great on the mic. I really liked when he was doing. Do you remember when he was when I think it was when Rampage or even when Dynamite started? Remember he was actually on commentary a lot. I
It
think
was
way
Rampage. When Rampage started, he was on the commentary team. He wasn't
yeah,
wrestling. He was on on the commentary.
and I actually really liked him because he can be really funny and entertaining on commentary. Um, and I do. I mean, I guess if anyone can pull off the character changes, he does, and he's able to do it because it's still Jericho, right? It's still him. He's not completely changing. He's just kind of like it's almost like his gimmick is the gimmicks. Right, like I think that's what it really is now, right? So and people actually appreciate it. Like the Wizard, even like the Wizard was actually a pretty funny angle. I didn't mind that as well. I see. You can see he's changed it up. He's now doing the old school. He has that WWE. He's almost like that going the WWE Phil Jericho. If you look at his trunks, that's very WWE. The colors, the design of it, getting away from the black, kind of grungy, a little more like heavy metal look that he was going with, like the Painmaker, for example. So he's kind of that doing back. I would actually love to see him dye his hair more blonde with that to give it really that kind of WWE sports entertainer, type of thing, right? Which is funny because I think actually WWE has been losing the sports entertainment. And I've been hearing a lot of professional wrestling since Triple H actually took over. And that's an emphasized, which I love. I love the fact they got rid of. I can't stand that term, sports entertainment, actually. But I digress. So yeah, it's interesting, but I know what you mean. It's is it someone who just won't, he's up in management. Obviously, he's big up in there in terms of I think creative. He loves pushing guys. Is it that he can't give up the spotlight? Do you feel like it's he still wants it? And kind of to your point where us the fans are like, oh, okay, you're slowing down, which he is, and you got it. He's what 53, so 100%. Like it's crazy that we're talking about someone who's 53 and they're slowing down. I mean, basically, Vince McMahon told Macho Man Randy Savage at 45, sorry, you're done, or you're 43, sorry, you're too old. We're going through a youth movement, right? And now we're dealing with these guys that are in their 50s, and we're criticizing. But again, we just want people to be safe and want people and just want, good quality matches, right? And to your point, so it could be, is it him like giving these young guys an opportunity to wrestle him because he's a legend, or is it him still wanting to be in the spotlight and he's choosing guys like an Osprey, for example, that will make him look good, even though normally he at this point he really shouldn't be in the ring with these guys if he was anyone else besides Chris Jericho.
I think we got to play that line of the age thing because yeah, we say that they're getting older and they move a little the slower. But you look at someone like Billy Gunn, who's 60 and he's still moving like crazy in the ring. I mean, both of these guys are still in peak physique, physical peak
Mhm.
form at their age. But it's also at the time where you do notice the slowing down, and the other people in the ring have to kind of work around that. And so, but the idea of being a mentor at that age while
Mhm.
still wrestling, I like the idea of. And I think that's what Jericho wants to do because let's be honest, I think Jericho knows, and then we know he's pretty much he's done everything and he's at that peak of pretty much finishing his career. So I feel like I don't think it's him trying to not lose that grip of hope of being still a star with these new up and coming young people coming through the pro wrestling business. I think it's more so he wants to be more involved with help guiding them. I think that's why this learning tree character came along. He's doing it with Hook. and now he's doing it with Big Bill. Even though Big Bill is not young, but he's still younger than Chris Jericho. I think he's only like in his mid 30s. Big Bill, I think he's like 36. He's like my age. He's like 36, 37. So, I mean, he's still got a little bit of career left too. And learning under someone like Jericho could help. So I don't think it's much so Chris holding on to that last grip. I think it's just Chris wanting to leave his impact. But for that, he's got to learn where that line is of, okay, here's what our role is for you in the ring, but your role as a mentor. And I think he's leaning in that because, again, he's got the Fozzy. He's always got the cruise going on every year for the Jericho cruise. He does, his podcast, so he's got a lot going, and he's got a family.
He travels.
So
that's cool travel too.
I was like, you got to spend time with your wife and kids sometimes, So I think it's at that point where I think between Jericho and even someone like Billy Gunn, while we're on the subject of wrestlers hitting that age peak, that they're maybe towards the end of their careers that they need to take a step back and be more like managerial, all that stuff, which I think we saw with Billy Gunn and the Acclaim losing the titles to the Bullet Club. I think that's a sign of, I think this is the time where Billy's like, yeah, give them the titles. I'm going to start slowing down and be more of a mouthpiece sometimes for the Acclaim. So with Jericho, I do think it's at that point where he even knows that maybe he's leaning more towards of a mentor than anything else.
So I was going to ask you, we see Big Bill right as the first. Hook was someone who was like, no, thanks, not interested. So who do you think, again, because Jericho can't just have one guy, right? He's a stable guy. He loves that. So who do you think might be the next guy that you could see coming under the tutelage in the mentorship?
Well, here's the funny part is we mentioned it because AEW had no explanation of why it happened. But Ricky Starks, with Ricky Starks and Big Bill, they were tag champions. What do they do with Ricky Starks?
Is he hurt? Is he?
I don't know if he's hurt.
So I wonder if I thought he might have been injured, and that's why they're kind of giving this a side story with Big Bill, which would make sense because remember.
Right. That's what I think. I don't know if he's hurt. I haven't read any updated reports on him or an injury. Mm-hmm. If he is, I hope he has a quick recovery, But other than that, I really can't think of anyone else to fall under the Jericho, tree. You can't bring Jake Hager back. Because Big Bill's going to be the muscles now, the big guy, if they create a stable. Matt Menard and Cool Hand Luke, they've got stuff going on. Cool Hand Luke and Ruby Soho are going to be parents, so it's like they're going to go deal with that. And so
think about what about his old faithful who's been with them all.
You're talking about Sammy Guevara.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I understand that, but I think with everything going on with Sammy too, because I think that incident between him and Jeff, I think that was kind of I don't want to say a good thing, but it's also a medium good, medium bad thing because it did hurt him a little bit backstage by being the accidental hit on Jeff Hardy hurting him. But I think it's also good because now he's spending time with Tay and their baby, with their daughter and doing that until they could be like, how do we bring him back? And maybe we do see Sammy coming back in with Chris Jericho. But I definitely enjoyed Sammy on his own. I did like solo Sammy Guevara on his own. But maybe they do go the route, well, Sammy's always been there for Chris, so maybe they bring him in, and it's just the three of them. Or they bring in one more guy, and it's a group of four. So I think if they do start doing that again with making Chris a stable leader, I don't think you need more than those three if they do bring Sammy in. Because now you've also got a three-man group for the trios. Because you need more of that. When the trios titles came out, I was excited. I was like, cool, we're going to have three-man teams. We're going to have good matches. We barely see it anymore. The titles are just being, which, by the way, I love that Jay White carries the belts on the bat. I freaking love that. That is great. And so
what is that other belt that he has?
It is.
I didn't see this. I was like, what is that?
I believe it was the other trios title, the original ones that they made before they turned them into like the pink scissored ones.
Okay, because I was like, can I see the other ones are pink? So I'm like, okay, so what is this one? So I'm like, okay, did he just go off to fucking New Japan and win something else now and come back with a
Something else and
belt,
nobody
right?
told him.
Just like everyone else seems to be doing. So I'm like, did I just miss something? He's just
Yeah,
another champion again,
I
right?
had to take a quick peek. I believe that was the old trios belts before they started doing the pink scissor like clipped ones, and those are the ones they originally debuted in AEW. So I freaking love that they're showing that off now, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, we'll have to see what happens, who gets added to Jericho's group if they decide to do that, or just keep them as a tag team, him
So
and Big Bill.
so here's another idea, as we always end up having these amazing ideas on the show. So what if, again, okay, we got Big Bell, big man. What if we bring in another big man who has been struggling and can't seem to find his way, aka a Wardlow, the under the tutors, because he can't seem to fit in. And then he's told he's just not doing a good job. And then he gets beat down, right? Or something always happens, right? So what if he finally gets in there? You got the Twin Towers, basically. You could have a Wardlow, big build team managed by like a Jericho. That would be, and you went like a big man team. That would be pretty cool. And then even if you bring Sammy back, then you got the two beasts, and then you still got the high flyer, right? So you got that mix. I don't know. I see. This is what's great about AEW. There's so many different options and so many guys that have different looks and feels that you can put together to make amazing teams. But I don't know. What do you think? Is that the craziest idea, or could you see that as a possibility?
No, I mean that's. I mean, you look at teams like, you know, the Brothers of Destruction. You look at teams like Natural Disasters. You know,
Remember
those yeah,
TNA? Remember
yeah,
TNA?
TNA. You know, and then you have, you know, AOP over in WWE. I mean, you got big guy teams going on in professional wrestling throughout the history. So it's not the craziest idea I've had. And I do like the idea of Jericho being their mouthpiece. You know, the guy
So
can
do I.
still talk on the mic. I think he
See,
would be a great mouthpiece for that
I
kind of
totally
thing.
agree. And I think that's what these guys, both of them, need. They do better when they have a mouthpiece. And Jericho's a perfect mouthpiece for guys like that. I don't know. I just think you could really do so much and cause some real damage with that type of team. That to me would actually make me be more interested in both Wardlow and Big Bill. Separate, I'm kind of like meh, right? But I think put them together, really emphasize the bigness and how they just freaking destroy and steamroll over guys, right? I know they kind of, you've got the Hobbs, and Hobbs is a big man, but again, he's with that group there. So I just think, I don't know, I just think it'd be kind of an interesting thing. I guess speaking of Wardlow, have we seen him, what's been happening? Actually, what's been happening with the whole kingdom? Like, like, again, so I just feel, he's underutilized. If you put him in the right position, he is a good talent. He seems to struggle, and then he gets a short end of the stick on stuff, right? Or he gets kicked out of groups or whatever, and then things just kind of fizzle. So I like to see something, happen with him, and I think that could be something of interest, right? So I guess I wanted to, for something else to talk about here as a next subject. We had the return of Kenny Omega the other week. He came back, obviously very serious, illness that he's been working through with the diverticulitis,
Lightus.
Lightus. Okay, sorry. I thought I was going to make it on that one. And again, more serious, I think, than most people thought. And and for someone like him, who was a physical specimen, right? And of how they've, if anyone's going to get through something like that, you got to think something like a Kenny Omega, right? Who's able to do it. So, does it look like, he made his return back in Winnipeg, which was great. And I thought that was perfect to have him in a hometown like that. How are we feeling? I mean, is this a bit of a work, or is this, real? And are we going to get Kenny back full time? And can he even go full time? Or do you think it's partly a work at this point?
I think the nice thing about pro wrestling is, especially earlier pro wrestling, is the blur lines between real and storyline, kayfabe. I mean, we talk about kayfabe all the time, keeping it kayfabe. And so I think what's nice is as much heat as AEW gets of trying to keep true to a storyline or trying to keep the blurred lines between reality and the product. I think this one right now is a good example of that. You know, I'm not going to say it's part of a storyline and an angle, but I'm also not going to say that it's real. It's a blend between both. I believe because I don't think Kenny's 100% ready to get back in the ring full time. I think maybe right now he's probably sitting at maybe 90%, maybe 80 or 90%, somewhere in that range. So he was ready to go for that angle in the ring with the new elite, you know, when they attacked him and then him being posted from the bed, you know, from a hospital bed. So again, I do like the idea of that blending the line of kayfabe, you know, of, oh, it's real and it's he can't go and they did something wrong and now he's back in the hospital. But also it's like, well, he did get physical in the ring, so maybe it is part of the story. Maybe it is an angle. Again, that's why I think why we have what we have right now with Anarchy in the arena coming up. Kenny, I mean, obviously has been part of almost all of them. He's probably part of what, two of them, three of them, two or three. And so
Danielson is too, right?
yeah. Well, Danielson, this is actually, he's been involved in all of them.
Yeah.
And so I think right now, I think that's a good blurred line with what's going on with Kenny Omega. And again, right now, I'm just following the process and trusting the process of AEW to see where they go with this. So
Yeah.
I'm intrigued.
No, me too. And I think what makes it more intriguing is we know Kenny is extreme, right? And we know he's wrestled hurt. Things have been taped, and just he wrestles through anything, right? And we know his passion for the sport. So I think that's what partly sells it, because it's like, I don't know. He looks like he's the kind of guy, he would push himself. I'm like, I don't care. I'm getting back in. I don't care what the doctor's saying. You're like, whoa, please, Kenny, no, you're going to kill yourself. Right. So there is that kind of like, so that's where the blurred line comes in. You're like, well, he could be. And then we see him, he's like, oh my God. Right. He's like, he's this big extreme. He needs to do it. And then you can see he gets injured and he's still hurt. So, and then of course they do the promo where he's, sorry, I can't be in Edmonton tonight. And you see him, he's all, tubed up in hospital. So you're like, okay, well, is this could be real? He's not making the appearance. So I think if anything, even if it is a work, this is the perfect way for the elite to get heat, especially Jack Perry. Right. So, if I just kind of segue over into the storyline with Kenny, I think they've done a great job of reintroducing Jack Perry into a character, a meaningful character, much more meaningful than when he left. I did not like where they were going with that direction, the sunglasses and the classical music and the weird FTW championship. And I think everyone was just like, no, but this makes sense, I think, for a lot of people. And this kind of attack on Kenny really brings that heat. And I actually like his character. I actually don't mind him. He's better on the mic. I think stepping away did something, right? Like we've talked about, sometimes guys have to leave and go other places to kind of develop the character they want. So I'm intrigued, and I'm actually looking forward to a match with Jack Perry and Kenny Omega. And I think it could be a good match if that's what they're building it up to. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that in terms of what do you think of Jack Perry? What do you think that they're going with him? And also, how do you like this new version of Elite so far?
I love what they're doing with Jack Perry. I think this is the character that he should always have been playing in his career. I understand the Jungle Boy thing. It was fun while it did. He got the crowd behind him. But this heel Jack Perry is the heel Jack Perry that I think we should have got the first time around. And I agree with you on that. I wasn't a big fan of the classical music or the sunglasses wearing the pants. Mm-hmm. I get it because he wanted to ditch the whole jungle look, but we could have done a different way. And I love the fact that he grew a beard out because now he's just Jack Perry. That's also a distinguish away from his Jungle Boy character because now he's just Jack Perry. He's not Jungle Boy. He's not Jungle Man.
Yeah.
You know, he's got facial hair now. You know, so it's like now he's just Jack Perry.
Well, now he's
And
a man, right? He's a man.
he's a man, yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that he's using his name. You know, he's not using a gimmick name. You know, so it's like that's what I love about it. And he actually, I do feel it has improved since he stepped away from AEW and coming back. I mean, that time in New Japan, I think just did something. And I say that a lot about a lot of guys that go to New Japan. Because a lot of times when the wrestlers from the U.S. wrestlers go to Japan and wrestle at New Japan, they come back 100 times better, both character, in-ring style, interaction with the crowd. I feel there's something different when they come back from that kind of environment, i.e., you know, John Moxley, AJ Styles, Cody Rhodes, all these guys, Jack Perry. They go to New Japan, they come back, and they just completely change the game. And so I'm loving what they're doing with this Jack Perry. I'm also loving the new iteration of this new elite. You know, I love that it's now the Young Bucks basically being the heads of this group and, you know, not following someone like a Kenny Omega. And, you know, they're basically getting these guys here and they're like, this is the new generation, man. You know, we're trying to play to that. And as much heat as the Bucks get, what they're doing with the group is genius. And what they're doing with their roles as EVPs is genius. And the fact of getting Okada as a heel and in this group and just playing it up, genius. Like, I just love this group. I did love the original Elite, don't get me wrong. But this new one, this is for the new generation. This is a new generational Elite group. And it's almost like an iteration of like what Bullet Club is now in Japan, what Bullet Club Gold is in AEW. I mean, heck, you still got the Good Brothers over in WWE, and they're still almost playing up the whole Bullet Club, you know, too sweet kind of stuff over there. So I'm loving the way that this group is evolving as well as telling a story.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do like that they're running with it, and it's actually meaning something. You know, because like the elite tends to seem to fizzle out. Like they would talk about it. It's kind of like how the BCC sometimes it's strong, and every single week BCC, and all of a sudden it's kind of no one mentions BCC, right? And is it still there? Like that triangle, like so. I like when they keep the consistency. I do like this group. I like the mix of the characters in it. There's a lot of different dynamics that are in the group, but they're all guys who can hold their own. I think, right? So, and they're all a little bit different. I liked how they showed up with New Japan this past weekend for Eddie Kingston's match. Yep. So I love that cross promotion stuff to get that more of the heelness along. And so again, this is what we're talking about. So remember, it was I think our last episode or the episode before, right, where we're talking about there's something more to us why Tony wants to do this cross promotion stuff. And I'm like, there you go. There's an example. My guys are going over, and it's partly to help, you know, build up the anticipation for the for AEW pay-per-view, but they're recognizing still the heels as a faction over in another company, which I like. I like how they're continuing the story. So I can see that there is an example of cross promotion that would make sense of like, okay, why is Tony doing it? Boom, there's one right there. Get my guys in there, almost get a chance to kind of sell my pay-per-view that's coming up, right? So again, great move. I love that. Are they, I guess, do you see, is 4 enough for the members, or do you see one more guy coming into the stable?
I think 4 is enough. I mean, I think if you do too much, I mean, you got to start. If you add too many people, then you add too many layers onto something. You know what I mean? It's almost like building a sandwich that's too big to fit in your mouth to eat. It's just too much. You know, you build it at the right size to where you take that bite, you're like, perfect. It's the right amount. So that's my analogy for tonight, by the way, guys. But
I'm hungry now.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry if I got everybody hungry. But, you know, it's almost at that. I think 4 is perfect. You can do a lot with a 4-person group. You know, Anarchy in the Arena, you know, Blood and Guts. Almost like you could do a lot of things with that number, you know. So plus, I mean, you could also have 2 guys split up and have tag matches. Mm-hmm. You could split it up. If you do 5, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle.
You can still have trios. You can have trios.
Exactly. You look at a group of 4, you can have trios. You know,
Yeah.
And I think that's perfect. I think that's the right amount. And I love the fact that the whole story revolves around basically these four guys kind of controlling AEW, and then those people faithful to AEW come in and try to, fight for AEW, which is weird because three of the four guys in the Anarchy Arena match are originally were WWE guys,
Hmm.
and the
Hmm.
only person that's basically an original AEW guy is Eddie. And he's the only one in that group that's original for AEW, is the A Team AEW.
Yeah.
But
So
I do
who?
think it's the right amount of people.
Yeah. So who is it? So you've got Danielson, you've got Copeland.
FTR
Oh, sorry, FTR.
and Eddie. So, but I mean, I think that's great. I think it's funny that, but also if you remember the speech from Danielson on, I believe it was Collision,
Hmm. Hmm.
he said, he goes, dude, I love being here and I will fight for AEW. He enjoys it. He couldn't get like that over in WWE. I think that's the one thing. I think with him, could he have been a producer in WWE? Probably, but I don't think that's what he wanted to do. I think what he's doing now is he wants to finish a career on a high note and actually do something backstage that's meaningful. And that's what I love about it. With FTR, they're the best tag team in the world. I don't care what anyone says, that day in, day out, they put in the work. And then there's Eddie Kingston, the king of the bums. I think that group is going to be so much fun to watch in the Anarchy Arena match that I think the Anarchy and Arena match, I think a lot of people are going to sleep on.
Yeah, no, it's going to be. I'm looking forward to it, and I just want to actually kind of tack on to kind of like one of the points that you kind of brought up there, and it was kind of like something I wanted to bring up. Um, when you mentioned about Danielson, that he had that passionate speech, and if you remember, it was only like week before, maybe the week before that, with Adam Copeland, gave a similar passionate, promo in the ring. Really dictating like, hey, we're here, we love this place is amazing. Again, these are ex-WWE guys that made the choice to leave, to come here, in the wake of everything. And people always bashing AEW, and oh, WWE guys coming over and taking spots and blah blah. How important do you feel it is for guys like Danielson and Adam Copeland to have these passionate programs, basically saying, hey, I am here for a reason, and this place is amazing, and it will continue to be amazing. It's got amazing talent, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else, that I'm going to finish my career. This is where I want to be. How important do you feel right now that those type of speeches from those type of guys that's coming out right now?
I think it's impactful. I mean, you look at the careers of someone like a Sting or a Chris Jericho or a Billy Gunn. These guys were pushing their ages up there. I mean, Danielson and Edge are not as young anymore either. They're in their 40s. I mean, Edge, I think is basically in his 50s. I mean, they're
Dustin
pushing.
Rhodes and the Big Show,
Yeah,
or like right for example,
yeah,
right?
they're up there. I mean, in WWE, they're the guys that are in WWE. Some of them are getting younger and younger.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at that roster, especially that NXT roster. They're young on that NXT roster. Then they're bringing them up to the main roster. They're still young, But you get these guys over in AEW, and you bring someone over like an Adam Copeland Edge, like a Bryan Danielson, like a Chris Jericho. They're up there, but that's where their careers. That's where they want to end. Because the schedule's better for them with families and with their age. They don't want to end up in like a hospital bed, at like 55 years old. B, I think they love the talent over there because those are talents that love learning under new guys. And I think also they just like the touring schedule. I mean, and they're getting opportunities over there, and it's also about getting your name out there and helping a product. We got to remember that also Bryan Danielson, I mean, he started out as a little guy on the Independents, then Ring of Honor, and then WWE.
Mm-hmm.
He's been working his butt off helping other promotions throughout the decades. Now he's in AEW and he's helping them out. I don't care what anyone says. I love the process that Adam Copeland and Bryan Danielson are doing over in AEW, and that's where they want to end their careers.
You know what? the one thing I've also really noticed is, the guys are really appreciative of the talent, and I love it. There's guys who are shaking hands. Again, when Tom Billington, I guess, well, the Dynamite Kid, the nephew of the
The
original
nephew
Dynamite
of
Kid,
Dynamite. Yep.
right? He put on a great performance.
Oh yeah.
A crowd, and the crowd totally responded. And I think it was it Dax, who
Mm-hmm.
it's like, hey man, like incredible talent. Like these guys love the fact that they're here. I mean, and Adam Copeland said it multiple times. Brand Danielson. I mean, I watched Adam Copeland's had a little kind of promo, I guess, on just AEW on the Instagram, whatever. Just kind of talking about how he was feeling after that match with Kyle O'Reilly, and just kept on saying like, what an honor to be in a ring with a talent like that, and his hometown. And these guys, I think the energy, it's true. And there's just such talent. I love how, a lot of these guys are like underdog guys, but they are great wrestlers. And these guys recognize that these guys are talented. And they're like, you know what? Let's get them on. I want to wrestle this guy. Right. Like the fact that you had a Kyle O'Reilly, Adam Copeland, like main event for a title, in Vancouver was pretty awesome. Right. And the crowd was genuinely behind it. And it just feels, especially I think this tour right now, having a Canadian tour was like the perfect thing for AEW right now, because it just kind of revigorated. The crowds of the Canadian crowds have been great for the most part. I think Quebec wasn't that great, but again, you had some great crowds, some great energy. I think it was perfect, for some of these rivalries. So it's yeah, I'm going to say, it's compared. Like, you don't really get that. You don't hear that too much in WWE. You don't hear guys really praising other wrestlers. Like, hey, a great match. I'm so lucky to have, or just saying, you're a great wrestler. Like, there's not a lot of that talk, right? But you get a lot of that in AEW, which is really nice to see. And it really does feel like, when they keep on saying this is where the best come to wrestle, right? And it really does feel like that, right? Especially when you're hearing it from these top guys who, Bryan Danielson is, could he be top 5 wrestler in the world? You know what I mean? And guys like that, and who are saying or giving praise. Ospreay giving praise to some of these guys as well, right? So when you're getting these guys saying, "Hey, man, I love wrestling these guys, and it's an honor to wrestle these guys," and that's saying something.
Yeah, no, I think also what a lot of flack that AEW gets is, oh, they're bringing all these WWE ex-WWE guys in, blah blah blah. It's like, well, you also have to remember AEW is only 5 years old. These guys that were ex-WWE guys have not only been in WWE before AEW came around, but most of them have been around for longer than that. So they understand the process and the game in professional wrestling. I mean, these guys had to work their butts off. I mean, if you remember decades ago when Bret Hart was on that talk show and who was in the crowd asking him questions? Adam Copeland, a young Adam Copeland, saying, we're wrestlers. We want to get into the bigger business. He worked his way in, and he's that guidance. And it's the same thing with Bryan Danielson. It's their guidance. And going back to what we were talking about with, Dynamite Kid's nephew, yeah. Which, by the way, Mike had mentioned, here in the comment, they're going to sign him. They said, I don't know if anyone's going to go with AEW with the bloated roster. I don't think I think the nice thing about the bloated roster, because WWE has a bloated roster as well. Let's not deny that. There's people on that roster that you don't see weekly, and there's people in AEW you don't get to see weekly. But that's the situation when it comes to rosters like that, where we only have enough time on this show to get certain people on. It's the same thing on independent shows too. If you go to like an OVW show, or you go to like a CMLL show, AAA show, any of these shows, there's people on that roster that you don't get to see that night because they just don't have that, because they're like, hey, we have this many matches on the card. This is as much as we can do, But I think the idea of having someone that has been around for a long time, a veteran, as it were, a veteran coming in and saying, I love this place. I love working with the talent here. I think that's so, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not detrimental. It's more showing of their,
it's like passing on, right? It's passing on the torch.
It's passing on the torch. It's more so of them showing their their character, that's the word I'm looking for, their character and their dedication to the craft, that they're like, I want to pass this on to the younger talent. And I think that's what I love about having, Adam Copeland, Brian Danielson, all those guys in the back as leaders. So I honestly do love their speeches when they say that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to your point, if it someone says like a bloated roster, yeah, but at any one time you could have 5 or 6 stars out with injuries randomly, right? So you have to be prepared for that, because you can't, if you have all your top stars, and it's happened, all of a sudden you're scrambling to fill these roles, right? So you do have to have that kind of rotating. And again, now in AEW, I mean, they've got 2 hours of Dynamite, there's 2 hours of Collision, and there's an hour, right? So what they're filling at 5 hours every single week, and then you're throwing, and then you also got pay-per-view, every 2 months, there's another 3 or 4 hours right there in a possible week as well. So again, yes, everyone's going to fight, and everyone's going to say, that's still my spot. It's still potentially my TV time being taken. Yes, granted, right? So I get that. But also you get to see when talent is talent. And I love the fact that he can call himself the Dynamite Kid, because he actually does he moves and it looks
like it's scary how crazy when he came out and I saw his face, I was like, he looks just like his uncle. That is scary.
And the body type.
Body type. Like, his mannerisms were spot on with his uncle.
And I love it. I think there is room for him. There's, because of that nostalgia, and people love Dynamite Kid, and the fact that he could have a nephew that moves and looks like him. He's kind of he could fill that Benoit Dynamite Kid type of build, that kind of character, that intense, fast builds, not huge, but able to be agile and still be tough, right? And that's what a Benoit was, the same as a Dynamite Kid, right? And I think there's that missing, that kind of like. So if again, if they're going to pick him up, the fans gave him a great response, and which is great. And I love how they let him have that moment in the ring where he kind of got up and was able to bow. I thought that was a classy move, that for AEW to do that. And that's kind of stuff. I like that kind of stuff. I don't think you'd ever see that. You don't necessarily see that in WWE, to give a newbie guy who's just, I mean, they might they'll give more of that time to someone maybe in NXT in front of a small little crowd, but they're not going to give it like that there. So we'll see what happens with him, but it'd be interesting to see. But I wanted to also get your, there's another topic that I'm a little, I'm interested to see, intrigued, perplexed, possibly. What we're seeing right now with, again, you had Trent Beretta come out, turn heel, all right, really pushing the heel, the heel persona, again, in the feud with Orange Cassidy. Now we see like Orange Cassidy, he was kind of struggling with the fact that his friends betrayed him, and now Chuck, is going to be out, I guess, permanently now, has to potentially, I guess, is that if it's real, that he has to retire. Do you find it off? Again, maybe because I just haven't seen it like this before. Maybe this is a new twist, right? That maybe you have to get used to what they're trying with wrestling. So you have, Trent, who is right now, they're really trying to make the heel and really working, a big baby face, right? When it comes to Orange Cassidy for the most part. Now you see Don Callis, who is like the biggest heel manager, come out, almost traditionally in the past, you would have seen like the Trent character now going heel, aligning with the evil, manager. Where now we're seeing in this feud that the baby face is now being kind of coddled by the biggest heel manager, where it's almost like, okay, now there's a feud between a baby face and a heel. They're trying to build up this heel, but now you're playing off the heel to create potentially another heel, right, within the Don Callis family. So I don't know, what is your take on that as an angle that's a little bit different, where you're a heel and then you have the heel manager come out with the other guy, right? I don't know, just I'm interested to see where they go with this.
I'm just all over the place with that story, because it seems like it's meant for Trent to be the heel in that story. Correct. I mean, Orange Cassidy's got the kids wearing his dressing like him at shows, gives the thumbs up. He comes out to that that song, and I don't understand where they're going with it, and I want to trust the process. And I love the fact that they're using Don Callis in the middle of it, because if someone's going to get heat in that company, it's Don Callis. When that man grabs a mic, you can't hear him. They boo the hell out of him. It's more booing that he's got than the former manager of Men of the Year did. Top team. America. Yeah. I already forgot his name because he's not there anymore. But
yeah. He was good.
Yeah. I can't remember his name. Someone will say it in the comments. But yeah, he was America's top team guy.
Yes.
He was the manager, and so Don is now getting more heat than that guy ever did. And so I think pairing him, and I think the idea for me, I want to believe this. I want to believe that Don Callis is playing that line of recruiting Orange Cassidy. But once Orange says no, Trent can come in and kind of continue that feud. Like, you don't want him. You want me. I'm meaner. I'm better. I can go places and stuff like that. And that, I think that can kind of fill the hole that Hobbs is, because Hobbs is out with injury right now. And so I think if they want to keep that Don Callis family going with a 3-4 man group, with Fletcher and Konosuke and Don, and with Hobbs out, you could bring in Trent. But also what's also intriguing in the story is where Chris Statlander is. Because there's that was that video that came out where Trent whispered something into her ear, and then instead of Orange stopping Trent from hitting Chuck's leg, she held Orange back and let him watch it happen. So there's also that line. Also her story with Willow, when Mercedes walks away and Chris pulls her away, and she thought it was Willow, and she slaps Willow. But you also saw the face on Chris, who went, like, almost had a smile because she had planned it, So I think within that whole group, there's there's that layers to it between the best friends. Obviously, with Chuck, I've read somewhere that the injury was actually bad before that match, and that match with Trent was kind of his last match, kind of a send off, because they said the bone tissue in his ankle was so severe that it requires surgery, and most people can come back for it. But doctors had stated that injury, that tissue in the bone tissue in that ankle was so bad that they don't even know if he can wrestle again because of how bad it was. And so I think where we have to look at is now where they go with that is using Chuck as almost like a MacGuffin for that feud, as it were. If nobody understands what a MacGuffin is, I'm going to explain it to you. The arc in Indiana Jones, Raiders Lost Ark. That's a MacGuffin. That's MacGuffin in a movie. It's a plot point. It's a plot device in a movie.
Gotcha.
And so with that story, I'm using a lot of analogies tonight. I don't know why.
It's good.
But,
I love analogies.
But with that, they could use Chuck as a MacGuffin for that feud to continue with the best friends. And there's just so many layers, because you're going to add Chris Statlander, you got Trent going on, you've got Orange, you've got Don Callis coming involved, and it's just starting to implode, and I'm all for it because I want to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'd rather see Orange Cassidy actually in the Don Callis family rather than Trent, personally. I would love to see him come out in black denim instead of blue denim to show the heel. He already has that kind of lazy persona. Is also could come across as very heel, right? That nonchalant, like, you know what I mean? Just like better than everyone type of kind of walk, right? And swagger. So I think that would fit. I think it's time. I do like this. It's almost like the Chancellor Palpatine seducing Anakin Skywalker, right? It's like, oh, Anakin, come with me. Oh, like, look, you know what I mean? You can see. So I'm hoping that it's like he's kind of picking up the wounded. No, come with me. Oh, like, oh, this bully, we'll get him. Like, you're better than this. I'll help you, right? I really hope it goes in that direction. I just found it kind of strange then. It's okay, so you're creating a heel from another heel, unless this is going to blow up, and and then, like you said, that orange cat all of a sudden kind of like wakes up and it's like, no, I'm not evil, I'm still the good guy, right? And then, right, so but I hope I actually want him to go heel for a bit. I'm ready for a change with him for sure. I think it's time. But I guess you can't have everybody turning heel all the time, right? You need somebody turning babyface, which I guess we do with Swerve. If we kind of pivot over to now someone who's really completed his face turn by having his old group turn on him. So were you surprised that actually at that turn when the mobile embassy turned on him? Were you a little surprised on that? On Swerve?
A little, and I was actually happy with on Collision of why they did it. I mean, you saw exclusive videos of it, but Brian Cage getting on the mic and actually saying it to the crowd to kind of proceed with the story, I was glad to hear it, because they're like, you're selfish, you guys take, and you guys don't even think about us. So it's all more so if they think that they're selfish. And I'm also liking, this goes back to the whole roster and how people don't get used. I am so happy now when we see Brian Cage and Gates of Agony being used now in some kind of light. We never get to see them used within a story, and now we're seeing them in a story. Obviously, Swerve took out Gates of Agony on Collision, and now he's got to take out Brian Cage, which gives Brian Cage a singles match against Swerve this week. So I think that's awesome that they're getting utilized now. So as far as the Swerve goes, no pun intended, but as far as that goes, I was 50-50 on it, because 50 on I'm like, holy crap, why? But then 50 on I'm like, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense why they turned on him. But also, why did they turn on him? So I was like balancing that line, So I don't think it was surprising, but it was different. I did not expect it to take that kind of a turn, if that makes sense.
No, I agree. And I thought if it was going to happen, I kind of thought that Prince Nata would have turned on him as well, but apparently hasn't. Where you could see, it was a Leone. I mean, what's his name? Who's like the Wild Samoan?
Yeah, Toa. Yeah,
Toa. When he actually said, "Nata, this is like, no, this is on you," and they're almost like we're to the mic or to the camera, making comments against Prince Nata. So I was like, oh, okay. So they're going against Swerve and Prince Nata. So, which I kind of like, because I like, so maybe you need to have that complete, because Prince Nata was always a heel manager, right? All of a sudden he's now, he's still managing now the champion. Now he's a good guy. So I think that maybe this is a way to make his character more face as well, because his team is actually turning on him as well, as opposed to him being with the whole team and all of them turning on Swerve. So yeah, no, I thought it was a good way to also showcase where Swerve came back and like kicked everyone's ass, and he brought out the cinder block again, right? So you're still again, and you hear the "you sick fuck" chants, right, going on the back. So you're still getting that he's a phase, but he's still Swerve, right? Because he keep on saying that, like, hey, like he keeps on saying, I've done a lot of those things too, right? So he's just always like, I am a good guy, but I am like the bad guy, like Razor Ramon kind of a character, right? You can never take the bad guy out of the face, like that. So yeah, so no, it's interesting, and I like those guys. I think they're all good wrestlers. We've talked about it. I love to see them. The Gates of Anarchy. Oh, sorry, what is it?
Agony.
I'd love to see them have more of a push, in the tag team division, right? I think they really deserve it, and I'm hoping that's where it's going. I mean, obviously, Tony Khan has seen that there's enough talent to move them over from Ring of Honor, to put them on the show permanently, which is great. I think that's a good step up for them, and it's needed. I like that. I think there's no other tag team that's like them. So they have that difference, right? And you need every promotion needs a wild Samoan or some craziness, right? Like you need the wild man, and he represents in that team. Like they're both fit and big guys, are great wrestlers. So I love that kind of wild manish appeal to them. So, but which is great. I wanted just to I watched an interview this week, and I don't know if you watched it. I think it was Chris Van Vliet. Is that the guy? Is he right? And
Yeah.
he does a lot of interviews with a lot of wrestlers in AEW and WWE.
Mhm.
Some great content. He had on this week Adam Copeland, right? And
Mhm.
they were talking a lot. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it.
Oh, I've watched
And
it. I follow Chris on social media. Love the
yeah,
guy.
yeah. No,
Does
he's always
great
got.
stuff. He does great stuff.
I agree, and he has great gas, and there's always some great topics. And kind of one of the things they brought up, which we're kind of seeing, and I think this is one of the reasons maybe why you've got guys like Brian Danielson and Adam Copeland coming over, and Christian coming over as well, is that these guys are able to actually have more creative freedom that they ever had. And Adam Copeland was really talking, they were talking about Christian, and Chris asked him, hey, do you think this is the best work that Christian's ever done? And he's like, yeah, I think it is, because there's always, say within WWE, that Christian always there was a glass ceiling for him, and he could never get past it. And he said, I don't even think it was ever meant for him to pass it, right? So his character level, and I think that, and I kind of seen I would put Matt Hardy in that classification as well in WWE. There's a ceiling, right? There you can go so far, or they're not going to let you go as extreme where you've got a character like the Patriarch, where they actually drop the F-bomb, when they're in the ring, right? And then when Adam Copeland's like, wow, we can do this, he's like, yeah, right. And just that must be so inspiring to be like, oh my God, now we can actually take these characters, right? And I can, and Christian, I think this is the best character that he's ever developed. I love it. Like we've talked about it, and we love the character. And I love the fact that they didn't waste him. And I love the fact that he's going to have a championship match against Swerve, and he's great. And I love his stable. So I really like that they didn't let that fizzle out after he lost the TNT championship, because we were wondering what was going to happen there.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess how do you feel about some of the maybe creative liberties that some of these guys are having now in AEW? That in AEW is almost like go at it. Hey man, go for it. Develop your characters where they didn't have it before.
Yeah, I think again, like I said, I don't know if it was on this show or another show, but like I said before, yes, there is a lot more creative freedom in AEW with as far as characters development and just promos, but there's still that approval that needs to be done through Tony Khan and everybody backstage to make sure it's going to work and it's right. But I do think that with the creative freedom that they have over there in AEW, I think it makes for a better product. I think because there's realism in there, you can tell when something's scripted and when something's not. Especially during the WWE PG era, you can tell when something was scripted and something was not. With now, I mean, with Christian, here's my thing with Christian. I agree. This is some of the best stuff he's been doing in his career. Between Captain Charisma character and then this one, I think is some of his best stuff. But I think right now with Christian, I don't want to go off on a tangent here because I feel like that's what's going to happen because my mind's all over the place trying to think of the right answer to say. But I do like the fact that Christian has taken this character, made it more adultish that all of his work in WWE and like you said, that glass ceiling that WWE has for most of the wrestlers over there. And like you said, that interview, because I listened to that interview with Chris and Adam, and what Adam was talking about was just for me, it almost opens the veil of the process between both companies, and again, the way that Edge kind of excelled and kind of ascended to the top in WWE when I didn't think that was going to be possible when he debuted. I was like, this guy's going to be a mid-carder for a long time. and then he's WWE champion. He's world heavyweight champion. He's having matches with John Cena, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Triple H. He's having matches with big name guys from the early days.
Mm-hmm.
And then he comes over here and he has hell of a matches with a Kyle O'Reilly, with a Buddy Matthews, and the match that he's about to have with Malachi at freaking Double or Nothing in a barbed wire steel cage.
Yeah.
I mean, the freedom that they got over there is great. And the fact that Christian can go from what he was doing in WWE and then his time in TNA to what he was originally doing in AEW, which was like just basically what he was doing in TNA, besides just being with, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, to when he turned heel and kind of ascended into this father figure character. I think it just speaks volumes of how Tony Khan, and again, we're always critical of Tony Khan, but this is something he does great, and he lets the characters evolve. He lets the characters become their own. And I think that's the one thing I like, the differential between AEW and WWE. WWE molds these people into characters, regardless of what you think. They're like, oh no, these are how they really are. No, they're getting molded into characters.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what WWE does. AEW, these guys evolve their characters. We just mentioned him earlier, Chris Jericho. How many different personas has he taken on since joining AEW? He's been like 5 different things since he's been over there. And so, whereas over in WWE, he's only been 2, 2 or 2. So I think with the freedom of creativity, you also do need someone over there. And we talk about it all the time. You do need someone over there to kind of also run by with the creative. And with Tony Khan so much on his plate, we keep talking about, I might even start a hashtag with it, hire Scott D'Amore. He's still out there. He's not doing anything. The man was let go from TNA months back, and yet he's not hired anywhere as creative head. I don't know if people are hesitant because they're like people of promotion, heads of the promotions. That's their creative. That's their baby.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no harm in hiring someone like Scott D'Amore, who's got a great creative mind. I mean, you look at someone like a Paul Heyman. As soon as ECW went out of business, who hired him? WWE. They hired him because he's got a great creative mind. Scott D'Amore reminds me of Paul Heyman. Great creative mind, not being utilized the way that he should be. So that's all I'm going to say about like the creative and everything like that in pro wrestling.
No, it's no, I agree. There's a lot of good. He would be good as long as it's not too many. It's not too many, chefs in the kitchen, right? Like you could have the best creative guys. I mean, I think WCW ran into that. WWE has ran into that, where they hire, he had a Bischoff, and then you had a Pritchard, and then, you have these guys, and then they start. It's like, again, there's too many chiefs, right? And it just doesn't work out. But I agree. He was a great mind there. Maybe he just wants to take a break. He could. I always wonder, some of these guys, that would he be almost too much like someone like Scott, if he was like, you know what, I could start my own wrestling company, right? And I know enough guys, I have enough contacts. If I started something, I have enough respect. Maybe I'll start a little small promotion and see what happens, right?
And something on that. Recently, Freddie Prinze Jr., who actually wrote for WWE for a while, was talking about creating a promotion. And think about this. What if Freddie Prinze does start a promotion? What do you think? He might even go to Scott and be like, listen, dude, you're great creative. I'm not that great. I can write scripts and hand them out. But when it comes to the matches, promos, stuff like that, I need someone creative. I want you. Imagine that. Scott D'Amore becomes creative head of a Freddie Prinze ran pro wrestling promotion.
Yeah. Right, because he's a great booker, right? So you need someone who's a great booker with someone creative and someone financial, and they don't necessarily have to be the same person, right? Because there's a lot of responsibility and play on the strengths. Yeah, right. And I've watched. I remember, and I didn't even realize that until recently when I was listening to interviews with Freddie Prinze and talking about how much work that he did in helping write promos for the WWE wrestlers and helping with the character and helping with the acting. And I was like, I didn't even know that he was doing all that, right? Mm-hmm. You know what? Because wrestling is hot. I think we're definitely in the middle of a renaissance. I mean, even the fact, I think that WWE with the changeover to Triple H running the show and calling it professional wrestling again, and not making the words professional wrestling be be bad, right? And they were not allowed to say it. It was a no. But so I think this is if any time to do it in terms of the interest, the amount of talent, the amount of contacts you could have. I mean, shit, he knows how many people he knows in the business. He knows how to do contracts, how to bring people, how to put on shows. See, it'd be perfect. You know what? Maybe why not? Right? I mean,
let me give you a perfect example. Wrexham FC. You know who owns that soccer club? Ryan Reynolds and Robbie McElmary. Two actors, two Hollywood guys put money into that. Look what Wrexham has become. Within 2 years, they've got promoted twice from their leagues. If anybody follows European football, soccer, they were promoted twice. Out of one league into the next, and then that league to the next. Twice. That's success by their owners, because their owners focus on that program and be like, what can we do to make this team successful? Think about it that way with pro wrestling. We were just talking about Freddie Prinze Jr. and Scott D'Amore. Who's one more person that you think could be a great business partner of Freddie Prinze Jr., who also knows the game of professional wrestling? This is crazy. It's one of my ideas.
Cornette or Bischoff?
David Arquette. You got two Hollywood people, Freddie Prinze and David Arquette, who's got the money. They both have the money to fund a promotion. Imagine those two guys running the promotion, and then having someone like Scott D'Amore run creative. But also, you could have, if all these promotions have their authority figures coming in, I mean, hell, you have Triple H showing up. You've got the GMs over on Raw and SmackDown. AEW, you've got Tony Khan showing up and taking bumps. And the promotion with Freddie Prinze and David Arquette running it with Scott in front of creative. Have David show up as an authority figure. He's got a lot of respect for the game. He's actually won people back over his stint in WCW when he basically killed everything, what people say. They're like, David Duchovny is what's the death of professional wrestling. He worked his way back. Again, I bring this documentary up all the time. You can't kill David Arquette. He basically goes through the process of training through the independents. Hell, he doesn't start independents. He starts backyard wrestling. He goes to a backyard wrestling promotion, gets the hell kicked out of him, kind of works his way back into the industry. And he's got a lot of respect. And so I think you have someone like that that's got the funding, that can start a promotion. But then you got the mind of like a Scott D'Amore to run it from creative. I think you would see that promotion be very successful. It's going to start small in small locations, but you can build based on word of mouth and how people react to what they see.
I agree. And even Scott is a great mouthpiece. He's a great host. He loves he's passionate, and that comes across the way he would always come out in the shows and talk about it and thank the crowd and thank the wrestlers and everything. So no, you know what? That's a great idea. You know what? And this would be the time. I think if there's any time, kind of we're saying this would be a time that you could see it happening, right? I think the interest is there, the exposure is there, and again, if you've got some backing, you've got money, plus you've got contacts, right? And like I said, start small. And again, if you're well respected and you can pay these guys, all of a sudden you're going to have your small promotion is going to be guest star. You're going to have some of these guys going, holy shit, who's that? Who's going to be at that show, right? And then that's when you start doing these small shows and get that feel. Even like 300-person show, like when again I talked about it 100 times. What a great show when TNA was here in just outside of Toronto, and it's 300 people, and it was just a great environment. And I saw some big names, right, in that show, and it was perfect. And it's just a great way to grab that. And people now, I think the interest is so much there that people will go to those shows, especially for like tickets are $25. $25 versus $100, $150, and I could sit there and see some really good professional wrestling and just was super entertaining. Great. I think this is the time to do it, and people are really open to it, and people just appreciate good professional wrestling entertainment, which I think, to me, this is at its peak, right? You've got wrestlers of every style, learning from everywhere, right? And looking for it. So yeah, I think it'd be a great move and really interesting. So we said it here first, Adam, and if it happens, we know it, right? So it'd be interesting. It'd be great to kind of see that.
I mean, I might tweet at David and Freddie and be like, listen, you two need to collab on a promotion and hire Scott D'Amore as creative.
Go
Just
for it.
saying.
Put
Give
it
us
out
more
there.
options of professional wrestling.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Adam, hey, look at the time. We're already at an hour and 10 minutes, and I don't think we even took a breath. Another great show. Always a great conversation. I know we could talk for another 3 hours of just random wrestling, but we got to save some content, for next week. But as we wrap up this week, do you have anything going on for your show on Thursday?
I've got a couple of ideas, a couple of good ideas. One, actually, we just talked about tonight, basically about promotions, about if anyone starts up a new promotion, who should run it, what wrestlers should sign, should they sign and bring in for that promotion, who should be creative, and then the other idea was just favorite shows, pro wrestling shows have you been to, moments with pro wrestlers and everything like that. That was another idea. So those are the two ideas I'm leaning to this week. And then my announcement on Thursday, I'll have a special announcement on Thursday for next week's show. So as long as everybody sticks with that, I'll let everybody know what that announcement is if everybody shows up for Thursday.
All right, that sounds good. I'm sure it's going to be a quality program, as it always is, Adam, and I'm sure it'll be a good one. But
Yep.
again, it was always a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us again this week, and thanks for everyone who is watching and commenting. It's always appreciated. And again, please tell your family and friends and like and subscribe. We always appreciate the support, and we'll do it again next Tuesday night here on YouTube. Thanks a lot. Talk to you soon. Cheers.